The NFL is known for its tough, rugged players who give it their all on the field. However, some of these players have a checkered past, one that's far from a few detentions.
And one of my childhood friends I grew up with, he went to jail for murder.
For them, growing up in gang-affiliated areas meant gang life was part of their way of life. Here are NFL players with ties to gangs despite their success. Aaron Hernandez. Let's start with a former tight end whose gang connections were very public, Aaron Hernandez. Hernandez, who grew up in Bristol, Connecticut, played 3 seasons for the New England Patriots and was on the path to being NFL's best tight end. His talent was so undeniable that the Patriots even signed him to a $41 million 5-year contract extension in 2012. But around the time of that extension, things started falling apart for Hernandez. His promising career was derailed when his ties to gang activities caught up with him. On the morning of June 26, 2013, police paid a visit to Hernandez's house as they'd been doing the weeks before, but this time they left with Hernandez in handcuffs after finding him involved in the murder of semi-pro football player Odin Lloyd, which occurred that month. Lloyd's girlfriend and Hernandez's girlfriend are sisters, and the 2 men are acquaintances. Following the arrest, Hernandez was charged with first-degree murder, and the Patriots didn't waste time in severing ties with him. While Aaron awaited trial for the murder of Lloyd, his story gradually disappeared from the media's front pages, and he was forgotten by much of the public. However, authorities continue to dig into Hernandez's past. On May 15, 2014, another bombshell landed. Hernandez was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in connection to a double homicide related to a drive-by shooting outside a Boston nightclub in 2012. Hernandez was never proven innocent of the crime, nor did he leave the prison walls. Just days after being acquitted of the 2012 murder charges, he was found hanging from a bedsheet in his jail cell. Right from his college years, Hernandez's ties to gangs have been based on assumptions due to the crowd he kept and his erratic behaviors. In college, Hernandez faced multiple legal issues. In 2007, he was questioned in connection with a Gainesville shooting that injured 2 men, although no charges were filed. His college career was also marked by failed drug tests due to marijuana use, which puts him at odds with Florida's head coach, Urban Meyer. But after his death, some of his belongings found in his prison room showed a much clearer picture of how deeply entrenched he was in gang culture. He was reportedly disciplined several times in prison for having what's known as STG paraphernalia. STG stands for Security Threat Group, a euphemism for gangs. Records also indicated that Aaron was a member of the Bloods, a gang notorious for its violent reputation. The tragic irony of Aaron Hernandez's life lies in the fact that he seemingly had his whole life laid out smoothly, yet he chose a destructive path. Shannon Sharp has the best words to describe this. Reflecting on Aaron's downfall, he explained, "Once you reach a certain level, once you reach a professional athlete status, a lot of guys leave that life behind. Aaron Hernandez could not. He could not. He was not a studio gangster. He was a for-real gang member, and that was a part of him. That was equally as important to him as playing in the National Football League for the New England Patriots." Days after his death, Hernandez was diagnosed with CTE, the most severe case ever seen in a person of his age. This has led to speculation over how the condition may have affected his behavior. Next on the list of NFL players with gang ties is Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson. The California native is a standout wide receiver drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles in 2008. However, in 2014, the Eagles decided to trade Jackson, which seemed suspicious given his talent. At just 27, Jackson was hitting his stride, coming off one of his best seasons with 82 catches, 1,332 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Known for his playmaking abilities and explosive speed, Jackson seemed primed to thrive even further in head coach Chip Kelly's fast-paced, high-energy offense. Yet the Eagles' decision to part ways with him had little to do with his stats or the expensive contract squeezing the team's salary cap. Rather, sources close to Deshaun and within the Eagle organization claim it was his off-field behavior that caused issues for him with the management. Jackson's downfall with the Eagles began with a combination of factors, including a bad attitude, an inconsistent work ethic, missed meetings, and a lack of chemistry with head coach Chip Kelly. However, as the team dug deeper into the reasons behind his missed meetings, they discovered that Jackson's circle of friends was becoming an increasingly negative influence on his life. The Eagles had even more concerns when a report surfaced that Jackson is associated with reputed Los Angeles street gang members who have been linked to 2 homicides since 2010. One of these members is Theron Shakir, who was charged with the murder of a 14-year-old boy who was shot by him and another of his friends after flashing a rival gang sign at the 2 men as he rode his bicycle through South Los Angeles. While Jackson wasn't part of the case and not a witness, he was associated with Shakir who is a purported member of the Crips. In addition, Shakir, also known as T-Ron, was a rapper signed to Jackson's label, Jackpot Records. The two shared a strong bond, frequently appearing together in photographs, even during Shakir's incarceration, which he captioned "Free Teasy." Another issue that frequently comes up regarding Jackson's background is his use of hand gestures in photos, rap videos, and even during games. According to an LA police detective, some of these gestures, seen once in a game against the Redskins, resembled neighborhood Crip gang signs. For Eagles executives, Jackson, a 6-year veteran, had become a potential liability, both for the team's brand and the locker room environment. Before he was released, an anonymous source within the organization claimed they are concerned about having him around the young players. This worry about his impact on team culture and reputation ultimately led the Eagles to make a difficult decision to release him. In response to the gang rumors, Jackson made it clear that he knows people in gangs, and he occasionally associates with people from that world. But is he himself in a gang? No, and he insists he never has been. Jackson describes the supposed gang signs as hand gestures that represent a sense of loyalty to his roots. In his words, "If I score a touchdown or make a play and my boys at home can see me throwing up the area we're from, that's me showing them love." For Jackson, these gestures are a way to honor the friends he grew up with, friends who, unlike him, never made it to the NFL. For Brandon Marshall, the consequences of gang involvement became all too real in a tragic event. Brandon Marshall. Although he managed to stay on the periphery of gang violence, Brandon Marshall's association with gangs was revealed in a manner he never expected. Despite his on-field success, Marshall often proved challenging for the Denver Broncos. His tenure with the team was marked by open conflicts with both his coach and the front office. During his 4 seasons in Denver, Marshall made 2 Pro Bowl appearances and established himself as one of the league's top receivers. However, his off-field issues frequently made headlines, with over a dozen encounters with law enforcement across 3 states. These incidents included allegations of domestic violence, false imprisonment, and driving under the influence. Of all the allegations, the most serious were reduced, and he never served jail time. However, there was another incident that became a defining moment in his life when his gang ties caught up with him. Though not directly responsible, Marshall bears some blame for the tragedy. It began with a misunderstanding at a nightclub involving Marshall and his cousin, with 2 men named Willie Clark and Daniel Harris. Clark and Harris were members of Denver's notorious Trey Crips gang. The beef continued escalating until it ended in Clark and the rest of his gang ambushing the vehicle of Marshall's friend and Broncos teammate cornerback Darrent Williams and spraying it with bullets. The 24-year-old Williams, just finishing his 2nd NFL season out of Oklahoma State, was struck in the neck and he died instantly. Meanwhile, Williams wasn't the intended target that night. They were after Marshall and his cousin, but followed the wrong car. The aftermath of that tragic night weighed heavily on Marshall, and he became withdrawn from those around him. Jacksonville Jaguars receiver Mike Sim Walker's, Marshall's college roommate, recalled not hearing from him for weeks. He was sick. He wasn't answering the phone for nobody. Marshall struggled with intense anger and isolation, especially as people around him began to point fingers, holding him partly responsible for the devastating events that happened. When Marshall eventually emerged from his isolation, his troubles only seemed to multiply. He found himself under constant scrutiny, with police questioning him regularly. Although he eventually got respite with the arrest and conviction of Clark and Harrison, Brandon Marshall couldn't keep on playing for the Broncos. On April 14, 2012, Marshall finally forced his exit from the Broncos and began a fresh start with the Miami Dolphins. Before acquiring him for 2 second-round draft picks and granting him a contract extension with $24 million guaranteed, the Dolphins conducted a thorough investigation into his background and saw the potential to start on a clean slate. Marshall and the rest of the NFL moved on, but the loss of Darrent Williams remains a dark chapter in the history of the NFL. Another player who faced serious accusations was the Indianapolis Hall of Fame wide receiver, Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison is one of the NFL's greatest wide receivers. Drafted 19th overall by Indianapolis in 1996, Harrison proved himself as he went on to record 103 career receptions, along with nearly 15,000 receiving yards. Along with Harrison's great career, he built his legacy as the epitome of the model, athlete, quiet, composed, and focused solely on his craft. He was never one to seek attention or make waves, always letting his performance on the field do the talking. For this, Harrison was respected by both his peers and fans. However, beneath Beneath this carefully constructed image, there was a side to Harrison that would eventually challenge the public perception of him as the ideal athlete. In 2008, Harrison was connected to the shooting that occurred near his self-owned car wash in his home streets in Philadelphia. It all began when Harrison got into an argument with a man named Dwight Dixon, and he allegedly fired at him. Instead, the shot struck a bystander in the back and shattered the windows of a car occupied by a 2-year-old child and his father. Harrison later allegedly beat up Dixon and shot him in the hand. When reporting the incident, Dixon claimed Harrison wielded 2 guns, firing an overwhelming number of shots. Police later connected through shooting to Harrison when they matched 5 shell casings found at the scene with a model of gun registered by him. The weapon was a Belgian-made semi-automatic pistol, a military-grade firearm that was capable of firing bullets powerful enough to pierce 48 layers of Kevlar. Despite this, when he and his attorney attempted to take legal action against Harrison, their efforts were blocked by Philadelphia district attorneys. The attorneys confirmed that the guns involved in the incident were indeed registered to Marvin. However, they lacked any solid evidence that he actually fired them. Harrison himself maintained his innocence, asserting, "I hadn't used the gun in over a year. They have been locked in my safe." This denial and lack of evidence left the case open, and Harrison was charged with no offense. A year later, Dixon was found dead in his car near Harrison's bar. But that's not the only no-so-pristine incident involving the so-called good guy. In 2003, just before an AFC wildcard game, Harrison allegedly grabbed a New York Jets ball boy by the throat after the boy, who was retrieving a ball, stepped into Harrison's personal space while he was warming up with quarterback Peyton Manning. Later, at a medical station, marks from the confrontation were visible on the boy's neck, and that's not all. Harrison's reputation took another hit in 2005, just days before the Pro Bowl, when he again grabbed the neck of an innocent teenager. This time, the teenager had persistently asked him for an autograph. In response, Harrison allegedly swung at the kid, then grabbed him by the throat, wrapping an arm around his neck. After this burst of aggression, Harrison and his friends ran off. Jason Avant's life, however, was a more positive story. Jason Avant. Jason Avant's journey to the NFL was anything but typical. Growing up on Chicago's South Side, Jason was surrounded by the harsh realities of gang violence, drugs, and crime. His childhood was far from stable. His mother abandoned him early on, leaving his grandmother to raise him, as his father was frequently in and out of jail. With 12 to 14 family members crowded under one roof, Avant inevitably fell under the influence of his cousins and the rough crowd around him. By age 12, Jason had already started selling drugs. He attended elementary school drunk and high. As a teenager, he became a member of the Gangster Disciples, one of Chicago's most infamous gangs. For him, dodging bullets and escaping police were just part of daily life. Against all odds, Avant managed to break free from the life that consumed so many around him. While many of his friends were lost to violence or prison, Avant found a different path in the NFL. This was all thanks to his grandmother, who never gave up on him and used the power of prayer to steer him in the right direction. Speaking about her, whom he fondly remembers as Granny, she was a great woman, a saved woman. Despite their humble circumstances, sharing a room in a small house filled with family, his grandmother's devotion was steadfast. Every night, she would lay her hands on him and pray, asking, "Lord, let him be different, let his life change." As her favorite, Avant knew he was cherished, and her prayers became a guiding force that helped him rise above his troubled beginnings. Avant always followed his grandmother to church on Sundays. Yet, once the service ended, he'd return to the streets to sell drugs with his friends. But those words from church didn't leave him. They lingered, echoing in his mind even as he went back to his gang life. After the police raided his grandmother's house twice, she made the difficult decision to sell it. A third raid would have meant the state would seize the property, forcing the family to leave. With his cousins scattered, Avant moved in with his Aunt Shirley, who, like his grandmother, urged him to stay in school and keep going to church. It was in this new environment that Avant began to turn his life around. "I quit selling drugs because I was away from my cousins and I got into basketball," he explained. From basketball, Avant transitioned to football, and with the help of his college roommate, running back Elijah Bradley, who was a pastor's son, he began attending church services. This marked the beginning of a transformation in Avant's life. He stopped drinking and partying, and even made the decision to wait until marriage before becoming sexually active. Avant started studying the Bible with the same dedication he once applied to football, treating it like his playbook for life. These days, Avant is known for walking around the locker room, singing gospel music, and always carrying his Bible with him. He leads Bible study sessions every Thursday and mentors both young players and veterans on and off the field. He quotes scripture effortlessly, much like a movie buff recalling famous lines from their favorite films. For Pacman Jones, Jones, escaping his past proved to be more challenging. Adam Pacman Jones. Adam Pacman Jones has a long history of off-field issues, including affiliations with the international robbing crew. In 2007, Pacman was involved in a highly publicized fight and shooting outside a club in Las Vegas. He was initially charged with felony coercion for his role in the incident, but with his NFL career already pushed to the brink with numerous run-ins with the law, Pacman revealed the gunman behind the shooting to the police. He further alleged that the gunman, Edward Morris III, demanded money for the hit and threatened Jones, his mother, and his child if he refused to pay. But in a shocking turn of events, Morris, in a June 2008 phone interview from the Fulton County Jail, vehemently denied Jones's claims, insisting that they were friends and partners, and stating that Jones's allegations of extortion and threats were lies. Morris questioned why Jones would make such accusations against him, suggesting that Jones was trying to protect his football career. Morris's attorney, Derek Wright, also made it clear that his client never extorted Jones, offering a strong denial of the claims. Wright further questioned the validity of Jones's allegations by highlighting the long-standing friendship between Jones and Morris. Wright noted that the two men had frequented the same clubs, visited each other's homes, and remained in contact both before and after the Las Vegas shooting. According to Wright, it defies logic and common sense that someone who had allegedly extorted or threatened another person would later become a friend again. It does seem that Mr. Jones's statements in Las Vegas are inconsistent with the truth, he concluded. Ever since the Tennessee Titans drafted him in 2005, Pacman has been involved in a whole lot of trouble. The Las Vegas incident was the final straw that broke the camel's back of his stay at the team, as he was eventually traded to the Dallas Cowboys in April 2008. But just a few months later, Jones was involved in an alcohol-related incident in a downtown Dallas hotel with a bodyguard assigned to him by the Cowboys. Although no charges were filed and no arrest was made, the incident led NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell to suspend Pacman indefinitely. Following this, Jones was given a 6-game suspension, along with the requirement to undergo alcohol rehabilitation. After completing the necessary steps, the Cowboys reinstated Jones in December 2008, but he was eventually cut off in January 2009. Unlike Pacman, the next player was able to escape gang life through the power of sport. Marquise Lee. At just 5 years of age, Marquise Lee was taken into foster care along with his 4 siblings. Several years later, he and his sister were taken in by their grandparents, but they were forced to live in an old, run-down motel. Living out of bags of clothes, Lee was unwilling to tell his peers about his living situation. He was even embarrassed to let others see him coming in and out of the motel, knowing the inevitable questions and stares would follow. At just 10 years old, desperate for a sense of belonging, Lee joined his brothers who were representing the Queen Street Bloods. In order to join the gang, Lee even fought a high school-aged member, and despite being an elementary school kid, he won. However, his brothers protected him from partaking in any of the gang activities, and he moved away before long, ending his brief gang involvement. Lee eventually managed to gain admission to Sarah High School in Gardena, California, and later moved in with a friend. Luckily for Marquise, he not only found a support system in the friend's family, but also discovered the game of football, a game that brought out his talent and passion. He excelled on the field, and it became his path to a brighter future. Sports was an ally in my case as far as getting away from the gang banging and all the other stuff. I try to motivate myself through the past to make me a better player moving forward, Lee said about it. Without football, it's hard to say where he might have ended up. In another situation, we have Akib Talib, whose gang ties nearly destroyed his career and life. Akib Talib. As for most players with baggage, Akib Talib's story is complicated. He spent his early years in East Cleveland, a tough environment where gang activity, drugs, and violence were a part of daily life. Talib became somewhat so used to his rough surroundings that he was hardly fazed when his mother, Okolo Talib, served 8 months in prison following a felony assault charge for attacking another woman with a knife in 1996. During that time, Talib and his brother, Yakub, lived with their father, Theodore Henry, in Trenton, New Jersey, after their parents had divorced. Despite growing up in a rough environment, Akib's athletic talent was undeniable. As a child in East Cleveland, he'd do cartwheels and backflips on discarded mattresses left on street corners, impressing his mother with his agility at just 8 years old. When the family moved to the Dallas area before he entered 6th grade, his skills became more evident. Talib quickly shone as a football player at Berkner High School in Richardson, Texas, and later as an All-American at the University of Kansas. However, Talib's journey was also marked by issues off the field. Toward the end end of his senior year at Berkner, he received 2 years of probation for a house break-in, according to the Tampa Bay Times. His time at Kansas was similarly rocky, with multiple suspensions in his first 2 years and an admission of testing positive for marijuana 3 times during his college career. The Buccaneers, nevertheless, selected Talib at number 20 in the 2008 draft. But in August 2022, Akib's association with the Blood Gang became evident when his brother, Akib, was also a member of the gang, murdered a man known as Mike Hickman Cold Blood in front of his son and wife during a local football game. It all began when a fight incited by Akib broke out at the center of the field, and Akib, who was in possession of a gun, shot Hickman. Akib was sentenced to 37 years imprisonment, but Akib wasn't charged. In Richard Sherman's case, his family's gang background actually motivated him to succeed. Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman was brought up in the city of Compton, a city infamous for gang violence involving the Bloods and Crips. His life was marked by tragedy and hardship. His best friend and high school football teammate was tragically killed in a shooting. His older brother Branton went to jail for drug dealing, and even his father, Kevin Sherman, had once been a gang member before turning his life around after surviving 2 gunshots wounds to the chest. Sherman's challenging experiences growing up became a source of strength, driving his determination to succeed. According to his family, each hardship he endured only served as motivation for him to pursue his football dream. Although he has diverged from the gang lifestyle, Sherman has also faced accusations of misconduct off the field. In 2021, Sherman was arrested on charges related to a DUI crash and an alleged attempted break-in at his in-laws' home near Seattle. Before appearing in court and pleading not guilty to charges of DUI, criminal trespassing, resisting arrest, and more, Sherman took to Twitter, acknowledging his actions and expressing regret. "I behaved in a manner I am not proud of," Sherman wrote, explaining that personal challenges contributed to his behavior, but that he took full responsibility. During the incident of Deshaun Jackson's ties to the gang, Sherman was one of the teammates who supported Jackson. In an article he wrote, Sherman, who grew up alongside Jackson in Compton, argued that it's unfair to judge Jackson solely by his associations. Unfortunately, Eric Johnson's story didn't end as positively. Eric Dwayne Johnson. In 2023, Eric Johnson was indicted on multiple charges, including human trafficking and violent gang-related activity in connection with a gang called Lotto, last one to take over, street gang in Atlanta, Georgia. The former NFL defensive back was charged with trafficking of persons for sexual servitude, aggravated assault, kidnapping, violations, and corrupt organization acts, RICO. The charges against Johnson and his 7 fellow members, including 2 women and 5 men, suggest they were allegedly working to fund and expand the Lotto street gang's criminal activities. Johnson, purportedly in a leadership role within the organization, is accused of helping recruit others to join the enterprise. The release by the authorities included the allegations that the gang committed 41 predicate and overt acts in Gwinnett County between October 2021 and July 2022. Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr emphasized that throughout our state, gangs are actively engaged in human trafficking as a primary means to make money, and we are using all available resources to fight back and protect our most vulnerable. In 2004, Johnson played for the Atlanta Falcons, participating in all 16 season games. During his time on the field, the former Nebraska Cornhusker recorded a total of 10 tackles in what would be his only season with the team. Besides his time with the Atlanta Falcons, Eric Johnson also played for the Oakland Raiders and Arizona Cardinals. One of his most memorable NFL moments was in Super Bowl XVII, where he returned a blocked punt for a touchdown, though the Raiders eventually lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. After leaving the NFL in 2005, Johnson continued his football career with the Georgia Force in the Arena Football League for 2 seasons. He chose to stay in Georgia afterward, though his future now faces uncertainty as legal proceedings unfold in the coming months. Unlike Johnson, Marshawn Lynch's connection to gang culture was more subtle but still raised eyebrows. Marshawn Lynch. In 2017, Marshawn Lynch made headlines when he flashed a gang sign during a game. The hand gesture, none other than the classic double bird. He was fined $12,000 for the hand gestures. Lynch has never been one to shy away from expressing himself, even if it comes with a price. Back in 2014 and again in 2015, he was fined $20,000 and $11,050 respectively by the league for what they deemed an obscene gesture. In true Marshawn fashion, that gesture was him grabbing his crotch while diving diving into the end zone, adding a little extra flair to his touchdowns. He originally made the crotch grab gesture during his famous Beastquake run in the 2011 playoffs. The NFL found Marshawn Lynch's gesture so concerning that they issued a warning to his team, the Seattle Seahawks, stating that if Lynch made such a gesture again after scoring a touchdown, or at any other time during Super Bowl XLICE, the team would be penalized 15 yards for unsportsmanlike conduct. But the gestures aren't the only misdemeanor on the part of Lynch. In 2022, the NFL running back was arrested by the Las Vegas Metro Police under suspicion of DUI. The officers found Lynch reportedly asleep behind the wheel of a 2020 Shelby GT500 coupe, which was in poor condition and missing a tire from one wheel. Additionally, the car was found to be unregistered. The footage, captured from multiple angles, reveals officers approaching Lynch with the car door open, showing the vehicle's undrivable state. Lynch was subsequently arrested following the traffic stop. Want more of this video? Click on the box showing on your screen.